Look, there's a truth that almost nobody dares to tell you directly, but you need to understand it if you genuinely want to grasp how female attraction works. A woman doesn't end up obsessing over the man who is the most persistent, but rather the one who awakens emotions inside her that she can't explain or control. And here's the part that makes many men uncomfortable. A woman doesn't necessarily have to be interested in you from the beginning to eventually start desiring you. What truly captures her attention isn't simply your appearance, your money, or the sweet things you might say. It's something much deeper and far more subtle. It's the ability to create a feeling in her mind that causes her to think about you even when she's trying not to. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you seen a woman ignore a man who appeared perfect, only to fall deeply in love with someone who, on the surface, seemed completely ordinary? That doesn't happen because of chance or luck. It happens because there's a massive difference between impressing a woman and awakening her desire. Female desire has psychological roots. It cannot be purchased and it cannot be forced, but it can be activated when a man understands how emotional attraction truly works. When a man stops desperately chasing and starts creating curiosity, everything changes. His energy shifts. His presence becomes something different, more peaceful, more grounded, and more magnetic. And that is exactly when a woman begins to look at you differently, even if she barely noticed him before. But here's the truth that very few men are willing to accept. Most men destroy their own attraction without even realizing they're doing it. They talk too much. They constantly try to prove their value. They're always available. They believe that the harder they try, the greater their chances of being chosen, when in reality, genuine magnetism comes from the opposite, from calmness, self-control, and a silence that doesn't seek approval. Because a woman may ignore your words, but it's much harder for her to ignore the feeling she experiences when she's around a man who isn't emotionally dependent on her. A man who doesn't chase her, but doesn't reject her either. A man who knows exactly who he is. So in this video, you're going to discover how to awaken desire even in a woman who today appears to feel absolutely nothing for you. And no, this isn't about cheap manipulation or childish psychological games. It's about understanding how the female mind reacts to mystery, emotional security, and authentic male presence. Once you understand this, she'll begin thinking about you without even realizing it. Get ready, because what you're about to hear could completely change the way you understand female desire. 1. Controlled indifference, the hidden trigger of female desire. Let me tell you something that most men never truly understand. A woman can overlook your physical attractiveness, leave your messages on read, and even make fun of your attempts to impress her. But there is something she can hardly ignore: the silence of a confident man. Because controlled indifference doesn't mean that you're disinterested, it means emotional mastery. It's that calmness that unsettles a woman and makes her wonder, why don't you behave like the other men who desperately seek her approval? When a man masters this kind of energy, he doesn't need to chase attention. His mere presence speaks for itself. The absence of urgency makes him intriguing. And the most ironic part is that when you stop chasing a woman, that is often exactly when she begins to notice your absence. Not because you suddenly became magically more attractive, but because she notices something that is extremely rare these days: a man who doesn't need external validation in order to feel valuable. And this is where the mistake that destroys attraction in most situations appears. Many men confuse genuine interest with neediness. They believe that by being more persistent, more expressive, and constantly available, they'll make her value them more. But female desire often works in the exact opposite way. What truly creates attraction is emotional self-control and the ability to avoid reacting impulsively when she pulls away. When you can remain calm, even when she seems cold or distant, you communicate something that words could never fully express. You communicate stability, confidence, and the feeling that your well-being does not depend on her attention. And that energy can be felt. When a woman senses it, her mind begins working on its own. She starts wondering whether you're still interested, whether you've lost interest, or whether someone else has captured your attention. That small amount of uncertainty awakens her curiosity, and curiosity is almost always the first step toward desire. Controlled indifference isn't about ignoring her out of pride or pretending to be cold. It's about showing that your life has its own direction, that you have purpose, boundaries, and priorities that extend far beyond gaining her approval. When she senses that, something changes in the way she looks at you because you're no longer just needy.